Hi everyone, Chris J from Bluecoat Foundation. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of our Fallen But Not Forgotten podcast. On this interview, we talked to Stephanie Galacia. She was the partner of fallen officer Nicholas Lee. And we go really in depth into a lot of what she went through as a probationer and navigating through being a police officer with this guilt and this burden, and how she dealt with other people in the field, and having a personal relationship with Stephanie. We really got really deep into the subject, and with some really honest information that I think can help many other people in the future. So I hope you enjoy.
So when it happened to me, I think there was one officer that had a similar situation happen. And I tried to reach out to, I can't even remember I think it's a him. Could have been a her. But I reached out, I emailed them. And they were just like, oh, it's going to be tough. They kind of brushed me off. And I was like, oh, so I gotta figure this out myself. And then Richard's situation happened. And then he's the one that actually reached out to me and was like, hey, there's not a lot of people that have been through what we've been through. So we need to kind of stick together and help each other out. Which is true, because when it happened to me, I'm like, hey, does anyone know anyone that something similar happened? How did they get through this? Because it was tough.
Yeah.
Thinking holy crap, I know I'm going to need help. And there was one person, and I can't remember their name right now. And I reached out, and they kind of were like, oh, it's going to be tough, and best of luck. And I was like, cool, dude.
So that person went through something similar.
Yeah. But I think, because I was still a P1, so at that time, they probably were at their 20-year mark. Because I remember their serial, and I was like, oh, damn, they're old.
Yeah.
Or older, or have, time on.
It's okay to be old.
It is. Nothing wrong with that. Shoot, I'm there right now. But yeah, they were kind of and maybe I didn't get offended because I'm like, this shit's tough. It's not easy. So I could see a stranger coming to me hey, how'd you get through all this shit? And I'd be a little it's a little personal.
Or you just don't know how people deal with it or what they've been through.
Right.
And
everyone handles trauma differently.
Yeah.
So it could have been me, the way I approached the person. They were kind of like, oh, screw this. I'm not going to open up to a P1 or this stranger. I don't know them.
Yeah, I wonder how much of you being a P1 at the time affected how that incident, or just in general, how much people offer, because you don't know anybody,
right? And that was tough too, because I'm like, who can you trust? Because even before the whole being in law enforcement and learning the environment that it's high school, you piss one person off and it spreads.
Yeah.
So even then I was just like, well, how do I know this person, really means what they say? Because I had a lot of people hey, here's my serial number, or here's my email or my number. If you ever need anything, call me. You get that a lot, and you're like, well, but do you really mean it? If I call you at 12 in the morning or 12 at midnight, whatever.
Yeah.
Are you really going to pick up? Are you really going to be helpful? Or are you just going to be like, hey, call me back later? And that's it.
Yeah, I guess reaching out is something that we could do better, I think. Because I've done that a lot, too. Because I don't know what to say or what to do or how to help. You feel helpless. So I don't think people are being mean. They just don't know how to help.
True, yeah. And I had to learn that at some point or at least I had to categorize okay, this person said, oh, call me at any time, but I know that they don't know how to handle it, so don't call them type thing.
Yeah.
And then I started realizing, Richard, if I was having a hard time, I know for a fact I could call him.
Yeah.
Because he he understands.
Right.
There's a group of people that I know, if I felt that low, that I can call them and I know that they'd help me.
Yeah.
And then there's that handful that they're just being nice or they're being polite.
Right.
So that's a hard thing to kind of navigate.
Yeah. I mean, how many people know? I don't know if you experienced survivor's guilt, but that's...
Oh, yeah.
I've read about it, but I obviously haven't experienced it. So, how do you, help somebody if you don't know what that even is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely experienced that for sure. a lot of the why him and not me type thing.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you can't even ever answer that question, I think.
No, you really can't. I mean, there's a period where I was just like, if maybe it took longer in the bathroom before we got that call.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Seconds,
All
it
those
could have
little
made a
things.
difference or something.
So was there a lot of that in your head happening?
Oh, yeah. A lot. A lot.
How many years has it been?
Since the accident?
Yeah.
6 years? No, 5. Wait. 14.
You have to look at the data.
Yeah, I'm like.
So tell us about your tattoo.
Tattoo.
Does it show on the camera?
I don't know, does it? Do you want to move the camera?
No, you're fine. So what is it? Yeah.
So, when did we do this? The Ink of Honor
The first Inked in Honor.
was
It's 2017.
17. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was through your organization
Yeah.
that I was able to get this tattoo. So the heartbeat represents my heartbeat pretty much because I made it. And the blue lines for Nick.
Yeah.
Even though the blue line right now is super controversial.
Oh, well,
So
that's not in our world. It's a nice tattoo, though.
it is. I like it.
So it has a date.
The date, his name, and his cereal.
Very cool.
Yeah, I like it.
I have this picture of you while you were getting it. You had this serious look on your face. I don't know if it was pain or if you were thinking about Nick.
What picture?
It's probably on my social media. I'll look it up. I'll show you.
I'll have to.
You just have this like.
Because I had people send me pictures like, oh, do you remember? And I'm like, I remember getting the tattoo, but I
Yeah.
don't remember like certain angles that people sent me. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you stand out in their mind if they're showing you those pictures.
Yeah, true.
You know? So, but yeah, that going back to the survivor's guilt. So, obviously, you have your small group of people
Right.
that you have attracted to because you guys understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this could be a positive or a negative, but I hope somebody who makes decisions in different police departments could hear this. What good things did the department you work for do? Like, what was great after that happened, and where can they improve?
Well,
It's like an essay question.
it kind of is, but it's also like watch someone say something negative about it.
I mean,
What's good is that we have BSS. I know that some departments don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense,
so that's a department therapist.
correct, yes. So that was good because I think within days actually that morning I had someone come in that evening while I was in the hospital like, hey, here's our card and this is what we do. And being a P1, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I literally had a stack of like business cards of people
Yeah.
and resources that our department has that I'm like, holy crap. So they did that. I think the first day I was there at the hospital, and they actually sent someone to my house. At the time I was living with my parents. So they sent someone maybe 2 or 3 days after that I was home. They sent someone to go and talk to me.
Okay.
So I think that's good that I know some people are kind of weird about therapy,
Yeah.
but for me, I felt like it helped. In the beginning, at some point, I had to do a private therapist instead of the department.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. Just because I felt like it was just kind of better to kind of separate it.
Yeah.
If other departments do have BSS or something similar, I think there needs to be a better communication with the therapist and supervisors at certain stations.
Explain.
I remember, because for us, we can go on a work day to our sessions.
Right.
So at the time I was on watch, when I came back from work, I was on watch 2. And so my therapy appointments were around 8. Roll calls at 6, you go and get breakfast, and then I'd go to my therapy session.
Right.
Sometimes those therapy sessions were intense where I would bawl and cry.
Yeah.
And my therapist was like, you know what, you need to go home and not work.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. But then, she'd call and let the watch commander know and then let the sergeant know. And it's like I would not necessarily get shit, but they'd give me that look like, really? Like you're going home after a 1-hour session.
That sounds so horrible.
Yeah. And so you're kind of like, well, I just went through this shit. Like, what am I supposed to do? You want me to sit at the front desk crying?
Yeah.
Or send me home? I don't know. So in that sense, I think there needs to be some understanding. I had a lieutenant. So what my therapist did was exposure therapy. So when I first got back, I was at the desk where I worked the kit room.
Right.
And the biggest thing I had to overcome was being back in the shop and being out on the streets.
Right.
Because all that was
imagine. Yeah.
Big triggers for me. Huge.
Yeah.
So little by little, there would be a day. She's like, all right, we're going to go out for an hour. Not respond to any radio calls, but just drive around in full uniform in a black and white. So it was a P3, myself, and then the therapist in the back.
I didn't even think about this part of it. Getting back in a police car. Anyways, go ahead. Yeah. I mean, I try to be thoughtful about things and try to write these questions, but I didn't even think about that.
Really?
But go ahead. So yeah, you got in a cop car.
Yeah. So getting back in the passenger seat, I remember I was like, my hands were sweating. I was like, it was a trigger for sure. Cause I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like the minute that I sat down, it was an instant flashback to the accident. I was like, holy crap.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah. The exposure therapy, it worked, but being in it was hard.
Yeah.
Cause it just took you right back. So there was one day we actually, I think it was a good, like maybe a month or two, maybe even 3 months of exposure therapy, like just driving out. And I think the first day that we handled an actual radio call, after the call, I was just like, I lost my shit. Like, I told her that I need to go to the bathroom. I did the chick thing where you go in the bathroom, you cried, and then, you get your shit together. I washed my face and walked out.
I'm sure if a lot of guys did that, there'll be a lot more happier men walking out. Anyway, yeah.
So I did that, and I came out, and she's like, I think you're done for the day. And because she saw, like, my eyes get puffy, my eyes get red. And I was like, yeah, I think I am done. And she's like, okay, I'll go talk to the lieutenant. So I'm like, okay. She goes and talks to the lieutenant, and I'm outside at this point. She comes out. She's like, well, he's having a hard time pretty much letting me go home. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, because I'm a P1. Like, I didn't know.
So you're still a P1?
Yeah, I'm still a P1.
Oh,
they extended my probation.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, what do you want? Like, do I need to go and talk to him? Like, I didn't know how to handle the situation.
Yeah.
So he comes out, and he's like, you can't just get over it?
Holy fuck.
And I remember thinking, like,
this is upsetting.
You're telling me to get over it? Like it. And at that time, I was just like, no, I can't. Like, I'll start crying again if you need, like, if I need to convince you that I'm having a hard time right now, then I'll cry.
I think I would have punched him.
Well, now I would. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, this guy. But where I know that I've grown is that not everyone will understand the situation. And he clearly has never been through anything traumatic.
Yeah.
For anyone to say, you can't just get over it.
Yeah.
No, dude, I can't just get over it. I wish I could. So.
That's horrible.
That kind of goes back to my point that there needs to be a better communication with supervisors and therapists or, whoever's doing the therapy sessions.
Yeah.
And probably more understanding.
100%. I think, and I keep saying this on different interviews, that we have a lot of resources now compared to like the 80s and the 70s, right?
Yeah.
But the culture is still very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I was involved in an incident where there was a group of officers who witnessed some guy jump off the roof. You might have heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reaction on the roof was something I've never seen in my life. You had grown men. There was a shock value.
Yeah.
And in grown men, not that men can't, but grown men crying. these dudes that I know, these tough guys, Marines. I'm like, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing. So, long story short, we asked for BSS for us on the roof. Next, everybody on the watch goes home. I start getting phone calls from friends from other stations, like, what's going on over there? Just somebody jumps off the roof, the whole division goes home. And I couldn't explain it. I was like, well, it's different, Anyway, fast forward years later, I talked to a lot of officers and given the exact details and what happened up there. Even some of the officers that were on the roof. And they still don't accept that.
Accept what?
That the officer, like...
That they have that emotion?
Yeah, like, get over it. Like, they just wanted a day off. No, I'm telling you, like, this dude was crying.
Yeah.
Because of the shots. Something happened up there I've never seen. So there's more to that story. I actually want to do an interview with some of the officers that were on that roof. But going back to what you're saying, I hope somebody hears this that could make a difference, that could make that change.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Because the culture really needs to change.
It does, because I think I don't want to say it's a macho man thing, because I mean there's women too that are kind of like, hey, get back up on that horse, you're fine, and it's like not everyone's like that.
No, yeah, one of my female partners recently, when I was trying to explain to her what happened, she's like, yeah, whatever, you just want a day off, that's horrible. I'm just like,
yeah, see, I mean, everyone's different. Like I said, everyone handles trauma differently.
Yeah.
But there definitely has to be an understanding that, hey, not everyone's that strong.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. When I was in Hollywood and I came back, I had a female sergeant kind of pull me aside, and she's like, I don't know if she meant directly just women are resilient, but I feel like people are resilient.
Yeah.
But some people might need more time to heal than others.
I also think that mental illness is looked as very negative when it shouldn't be.
I agree, because I got a lot of looks like, you're still going to BSS? Like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
I'm like, dude, I saw some stuff.
Yeah, in the cop culture, I think it's just like they think 5150 hold. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just very black and white.
Oh, I've had people like, hey, are you going to lose your shit? I'm like, no, I'm not going to lose my shit, but nice way to bring that up.
It's horrible.
It is, but I think you need to kind of have a sense of humor to it. I think back then I was kind of like, oh, you have a stink attitude. Now I look at it and I'm like, a lot of people just don't understand.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's some heavy stuff, especially that lieutenant story.
Yeah. And I was kind of annoyed then because I'm like, this is a lieutenant. This is a leader.
Yeah.
And you're telling me to get over it when I'm expressing that I'm hurting. And not that I expected him to hug me or baby me or anything, but hey, dude, I'm telling you, like, this is a trigger for me. Like, this isn't normal. If you want me to go handle radio calls and start crying, cool, I'll do that if I need to prove something to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I was like, that's not cool.
That's some heavy stuff. Some heavy stuff, actually. It's a trip.
It is.
It's a trip. So when it comes to fallen officers, I've dealt, ever since I started this nonprofit, I've dealt is the wrong word. I've,
Handled?
No. Made a lot of, friends and acquaintances of people who are very close to fallen officers, obviously. I've only known one, Nick Lee. It's the only one I know.
Like personally?
Yeah, like saw him every day at work and stuff like that. So, but when he passed away, I mean, Olympic was already opened. I haven't seen him since Olympic opened. So, obviously that kind of detached me a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I bring this up, I guess, just to talk about Nick Lee.
Okay.
So, but yeah, he was, you knew him as a P1.
Yes.
I knew him I was a brand new P2 who thought I was a badass. I could save the world. And this guy, walked around, and he was just the coolest cat in the station.
She really was.
And it's funny, every time if I passed him in the hallway 10 times, he would stop every single time and just talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, we just spoke, bro. Like,
Yeah.
no.
He was that. Well, he was still, as a P1, he was still that P3.
Yeah.
He would, whoever he knew personally, he would stop and,
Yeah.
even if he didn't, like, anyone knew, he'd go and talk to and.
Yeah, he had this energy that was just.
Yeah.
And when I got to, to know him through his friends after he passed away, that energy wasn't fake. It was real. He was like happy.
Yeah. Oh no, that was him.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, how are you like this 24/7?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he would tell me he'd wake up on his days off and walk his girls to school.
Yeah.
And then he would run back. And I'm like, well, how many miles is that? And he's like, oh, it's like about like 5 or 6. I'm like, what? How are you not exhausted from that?
Yeah.
But no, his energy, like just him overall, a different vibe and energy.
Yeah.
In a good way. Just
it's almost like he didn't have a shred of negativity in him.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember from him, and hearing all his friends talk about him and stuff in the video that's on YouTube. That was real. He was just a happy person, straight up, and his hair always looked freaking good.
On point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
That's important for some people. So how many months into probation were you?
3 months.
Was he your first TO?
No, he was my third.
He was your third TO? Okay.
Yeah.
So, as a P1, you're always nervous. You don't want to get yelled at or do
Right.
anything wrong. So, do you remember the first day you worked with him?
Vaguely. I just remember, because, like P1s talk like, hey, so I remember asking my other fellow P1s, like, hey, what does he expect? What is he like in the morning? Like, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
Type thing. And they're just like, hey, just make sure that as soon as we're down, you're like right in line, get everything that you need for the shop. And he likes a Crown Vic, and make sure that you gas it up and you wash it and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. You're
Let's
just being
go.
a good P1.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, hey, this is what he wants. That's what I got to do.
Did he have a day one talk with you?
Yeah, he did.
You don't have to share it, but.
Well,
Because
I mean,
I always think of like if I were to make P3, I having that first talk with that day one P1.
don't they all do that though?
Not really.
Oh.
I think it's different now.
Oh. Well, I mean, I got that talk from my first P3s, which is expected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I knew that he was going to have that talk with me.
Yeah.
But I'll give him this. I think the first couple weeks because I worked with him for 2 DPs.
Okay.
So I think
a DP is a month.
Yes, sorry.
In our department world. Yeah.
So the first month I worked with him, and I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks into it, he was like, "You're going to be all right." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Just make sure that you do what you got to do to promote." I'm like, "Really?"
Interesting.
Yeah. And he's like,
For
sorry.
somebody who didn't.
Well, at the time he was like, eventually at some point I do want to become a sergeant.
Okay.
So I was like, oh. At that point I was like, I don't care, whatever. Like those are your goals, not mine.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, you're going to be fine. He's like, you know what you're doing and you're going to be fine. And I mean, I've had other people tell me that at that point, like other P1s or P2s.
Yeah.
But when he said that, I was just like, oh man, maybe I am going to be all right. Like maybe I'll make it through this probation.
Yeah.
Like there's something about him telling me that I was like, I believe him. Like I'm going to be good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Comforting.
It was.
Fatherly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. He was.
I'm sure he wouldn't lie to you either.
Oh no, he was very honest. Very honest. Like if I made a mistake, he'd be like, yeah, you fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like he was not shy about it.
Yeah.
But he wasn't shy about like the good things that you did either. So it was like a good balance.
That's good.
Yeah. And he definitely harped on me about deferred comp.
I'm lagging.
Well, are you?
Yeah, a little bit.
No, he was like, give me your phone. I'm like, handed him my phone. He called.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, we're not getting out of the car until you like set it up. I was like, oh, okay. And I look back now and I'm like, I'm glad I had someone like that.
Of course.
As a P1. Because now I was like, I probably would have been like, whatever. I'll, put it on hold. I'll do it later. So I'm glad that, I'd be like
this
you.
Guy.
So I'm glad he did that for me.
That's cool. Like, I never had that. I think if I'm ever a training officer, I would have to like send my P1s to somebody, an officer who knows that stuff. Like, this is as important as, not as, but like tactics or whatever.
Yeah.
So talk to this officer because I don't know anything, but that I never got that on probation. On probation, I don't even know if I should share that story.
It's up to you.
Probation was just all about tactics and report writing.
Mm-hmm.
I was way second, Yeah, so I had this training officer who we're driving. When I say the story, I'd like to mimic his voice, but if I do, people know who he is. So I'm not going to do that part, which makes it funnier. But there was a young lady walking, smiling, flirting, and he's like, "Hey, rookie."
Oh, no.
"Hey, rookie, talk to her, get that phone number." Like, no, sir. They're like, "What's wrong with you, rookie? There's something I'm going to teach you." And he drives like on the sidewalk over this grassy area and like pretty much like jams her up. And she's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Come here." Pretty much ordering her, right? And she walks over and she's like, this is my probationer. Jams up shit. He throws shit in my last name. And it's like, "Do you think he's cute?"
No.
I'm
put her right on the spot.
I'm red as a tomato. I don't say one word during this whole thing. So he goes, "Do you want his number?" She says yes, right?
Oh, no way.
And so he goes, "Rookie, take out a business card, put your number on it." And then I give it to her. Yeah, that's totally out of policy.
Did she ever call though?
We don't need to go into those details.
I'm just curious.
The point is, I would rather have had learned that than learned this.
Yeah. Because I'm sure you would have learned that as a P2 anyway.
I never put those skills to use. So, never
no,
gained
he
those
was
skills.
like a mentor for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He set that up, the whole deferred comp, and then he was like, make sure when you retire, that you have something. What? Closer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, when you retire, make sure you have something. I'm like, okay. As a P1, I personally didn't think of that. I was just like, whatever. Like, when I retire, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, like, you need to have other stuff, too.
Yeah.
So.
That's good.
Yeah. And he was definitely about tactics and all that stuff, just like another P3, but he brought his own character into it.
Yeah.
Like a mentor. Because even after, he was like, when you become a P2, he's like, if you have any questions, you have my number.
Yeah.
And like on our Friday, whether it was like Monday or Wednesday or whatever, but our last day that we were working, he would text me like, hey, make sure that you look over this or, go over this policy or whatever.
Very cool.
I didn't fully understand. He'd remind me like, hey, make sure you kind of look over this on your days off.
Yeah.
Which was nice because I'm pretty sure not a lot of people would put in that extra work.
Yeah.
And he was like that with other P1s too.
You really wanted them to flourish and to really know the job.
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. He was a good P3.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. There was like a handful of them in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And definitely old school.
I like that.
Yeah. Because so when we were in the car, I remember he told me, when we're in the station, he's like, you play the game. It's yes, sir. Yes, whatever.
Right.
Whatever I say, you do. And I was like, yes, sir. Like in the car.
Yeah.
And he's like, when we're in the car, we're partners.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Like okay. I like that. Which I felt made it a more comfortable environment to work out on the streets.
Yeah.
Because with I remember my first DP at work, or my first month out on patrol, a suspect or whoever, they knew that I was a P1. Like, they could totally tell that I was new.
Squeaks.
Yeah.
You probably look 12 because you look 13 now.
No, I wish.
Right? Yeah, they totally know.
They totally know, yeah. And they obviously hear you talking. So like if you're telling your partner like, hey sir, is this how I'm supposed to do this, or is this how I'm supposed to do this and that? Like when you ask stuff, they pick up like, why is he talking to her or him?
Yeah.
And saying sir, like aren't they partners? But with Nick, when we're doing stuff like out on the streets, like if we had a call,
Yeah.
he'd be like, hey partner, do this and this. I'm like, oh yes sir.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can call me partner when we're
Around people.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, but in the station, it's yes, sir, and you do what I tell you. And I'm like, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's that old school culture mentality, keeping it like that. And then on the streets, not projecting your rookiness so
Yeah, I
much.
was gonna say.
Those are tactics. Those are good tactics. So, yeah. He seemed to have his tactics in order too, which
is good.
Tactics are weird in our world. If you do too much, you're like, they make fun of you because you're like Tackleberry, right? You're like nerdy, tactical nerd.
I'm already thinking of someone.
And if you don't do enough, then you're a slob.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got this center point that you need to find in our weird little culture, which is kind of silly, but it is what it is.
It's kind of like anything that we do. You're damned if you do too much,
Yeah.
and you're damned if you don't do too much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So what else you got for me in that book?
There's questions could last forever.
Well, you got a bedtime. I don't.
Let's see. I think we went over all this stuff here because you pretty much hit on all my notes without even me asking you.
Oh, it's because I read them earlier.
No, you didn't.
No, I'm just kidding.
When you see, if you're taught manners, you see somebody with a scar on their face or something, you always say, don't ask them how they got their scar. When people know who you are and they know Nick Lear, they know the story.
Yeah.
I know how I feel. I really want to know everything.
Like the whole story?
I don't want you to tell the whole story. No. But what I'm saying is, what I'm getting to is that, like, that's how I feel. Like, I want to know, like, how was it? Like, just, I don't know why. Just, like, I want to feel that pain. I want to help and, just everything. But we don't do that, which is probably a good thing. But I know.
Oh, like, what is that?
This is not actually a studio. So, do you get a lot of people asking you? Or zero? And what do you appreciate?
So when I first got back, obviously everyone knew, which was like the worst feeling.
Where you did your probation? Same station?
Yes. Yeah. Same station. Well, Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's not like a secret. So yeah, when I went back to work, which was like almost a year, because I got that phone call like, hey, if you don't come back soon, you're going to have to do the academy over.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that shit again.
Get tased
I
again?
do not want to get tased,
Get OC'd again?
No. I was like, no, thank you. Like, the first time was good enough.
Yeah.
I don't need to repeat that. So I went back to work, and I was light duty. So
Right.
I was still I was working inside, like I said, either the kit room or the front desk.
Yeah.
So everyone at the station knew. And I remember, I'm not going to say their name.
Good.
But I remember there was this, I can't remember if he was a P3 or a slow at the time. Okay. One of those.
We're narrowing it down, though.
Yeah, there you go. And I happened to walk by, and I still don't know a lot of people at that time because I was still new. And I was the P1 that kind of just kept their head down. I didn't really socialize. Like, if you were P1, I'd talk to you because then we could exchange, like, hey, have you worked with so-and-so? Like,
right.
Information. But if you're walking down the halls, I'm like, oh, hi, sir, or whatever. Some people wouldn't respond. Some would, whatever.
Because you're a P1.
Right. So I'm walking down the hall, and this guy stops me. And he's like, are you new? Are you like a P1? I'm like, oh, yes, sir, I am. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, aren't you? And he kind of did this thing. And then I could read on his face that it clicked. And he's like, oh, you were his P1. And I'm like, yes, sir, it was. And then he was like, oh. And it just was awkward because I was just like,
I'm sure.
I don't know you, and I don't like, to me, what I went through, even though it was out there, it was personal.
Yeah.
Super personal. So going back to work, I felt like people saw me naked.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh my God, that's her. And I'm like, don't make it weird. Like, just kind of like keep it normal. So in that situation, I remember thinking like, that was awkward for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't think that people would really want to know, I guess, what I went through. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I had people like, oh, what was it like? What did you see? And this and that. And I'm like,
so people have asked you questions like
oh
that?
yeah, like full on, just like not even like, oh hi, I'm so and so. It's just like I had a female in the bathroom. Like, so what was it like? Like, what did you see? What did you go through? And I'm like, I don't even know your first name, and you're asking me these personal questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned to navigate. Like, oh my God, I don't feel like talking about it right now.
Yeah.
Or I would answer and keep it super short.
Yeah.
Like, it was tough. It was hard, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Because I think if I were to like just burden you with how it was, a lot of people are like, because I did that twice, and some people were like, oh shit, like you went through it.
Did that help you think? Those times?
Like those few times that
letting it out to someone who's like not a therapist or something, you know?
No, because like one of them cried, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to make you cry. You asked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit. Like, then I felt like shit because I'm like, I didn't mean to make you cry, you know?
Yeah.
And then there was the second person. They're like, oh shit, like you went through it.
Right.
Because I guess some people had perceived that I didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that when after the accident had happened, I actually woke up in the car. Okay. Like stuck. Like I have memories. Okay. And people are like, oh, we heard that you were just knocked out. Like you didn't see anything. And that's why people think that you should be fine and you should recover so quickly.
That's that ignorance again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I woke up in the car, still stuck in the car. Like I saw stuff that, I mean, I'm sure some people could get over, but for me, that's that accident was nothing that I thought I'd ever have to go through. Yeah. Being a police officer, because my stepdad's a cop. So, getting into it, I'm like, you know what? I'll probably have to go through shootings. Yeah. I'll have to see dead bodies. You know, kids get abused. Like not that I don't think you can ever prepare for this career. Right. But I was expecting things. Never once did I expect to get in a car accident like that and see your P3 dead next to you. Yeah. There's no way to prepare for that. I don't think ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I daydream all the time of getting in shootings just so I can be prepared.
Right.
But I never daydream about what if I get in a car accident.
Yeah. I for sure didn't.
Yeah.
I prepared for the other stuff like shootings, chasing someone, you know. Right. What am I going to do in these situations? Just, I guess, normal patrol stuff. Yeah. But never once did I think I'd have to get through that.
So at any point, did you ever think about quitting?
Yes, I did. Yeah. It was initially right after the accident had happened. At the time, everyone's going to know my business now. At the time, I was engaged to someone. And they knew like the hard work in the academy. So the academy for me, it wasn't easy. I struggled, especially with the push-ups, you know, the upper body strength and all that. Yeah. So I struggled in the academy, but I made it. Right. Because I applied myself, I put in the hard work, and you know, you did what you had to do. So when that accident happened, he's like, "Hey, you know, why don't you resign?"
Who said that? Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry. Yes.
At the time, my fiance. Yeah. Like, why don't you resign? I'll work, and you could. He pretty much said like I could be a stay-at-home mom or find something else that I'm passionate about. Right. And I was like, oh man, like, I have this option of being, I guess, a stay-at-home mom, or find a different career path or something else I'm passionate about, or give up my dream pretty much.
Yeah. How real was it? Like,
It was fucking real because I didn't marry the guy.
did you want to? Now, when you thought about quitting, was it because your a perspective on life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it definitely changed my perspective. So obviously that situation, I mean, we had other issues, but that situation didn't happen. So that was the first time I thought about quitting.
Yeah.
And then I came back to work, and even probably another year, there was times where I'm like, damn, like, do I really want to do this? Like,
Yeah.
and it wasn't so much of the work. It was just the stress that I felt.
Yeah. It's
And
real.
you know, the PTSD, the triggers, like the mood swings. I would go home and there was times where my brother might have been just being a pain in the ass,
Yeah.
and it put me in a shitty mood, and I would snap. And there was times where my mom's like, she would tell my brothers like, hey, your sister's going through it, just leave her alone.
Yeah.
So it took a toll, not just on me, but like on my family, because they're like, she's going through shit.
Yeah.
Like, we all knew I was going through shit, but it was just being in it and actually going through it was tough. Where I'm like, is it really worth it
Yeah.
to stay in this career?
Yeah. I think about that a lot, and I didn't go through anything like you did. You know, I see people getting hurt, and they're so passionate about this work, and I see some people who post so much, and they live this identity of a cop, which is great. It's a good place to be, but when you get hurt and you're home for a long time and you get pensioned off, and now that camaraderie is just straight gone,
Yeah.
and that can mess with people too.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
So
It's a lot. Like, even now with all this, the shit that's going on, like,
yeah.
when I think about, so we have that program, the ACOP, where they go through the cadet program.
Okay.
And then once they're 18, they can work for the city. They're not sworn, but they're city employees.
Right.
And I look at these girls and I'm like, you sure you want to get into this? Like, even with my siblings, they say they want to become police officers. And I'm like, damn, dude, do you really want to though? Like, not that I don't hate the job, or I don't have anything. Well, I do have negative stuff, but not, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's not that I just would want better for them. I don't think they realize like what you're really signing up for. And I for sure didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like if I had a kid, the last thing I would want them to be is a police officer.
Oh,
However, you can never, when I was applying, there's nothing in the world that could convince me not to. So I wouldn't try to not convince them. I would just try to guide them with
Prepare
the knowledge
them,
I
maybe?
have already. Yeah. And just kind of knowing what I know now, it's like, is it worth it? So,
Yeah.
we all want to catch the bad guy.
Right.
Somebody who stole a Snicker could turn around in an alley and shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's real. That's not fake.
Or you don't even have to steal anything, and you can just walk up.
Yeah, you could just,
Like the two sheriffs that
like
just
two
happened.
sheriffs. I just interviewed Phil Cuesta's cousin, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he got ambushed. So it really, and then, and then you have the pressure of numbers and tickets. There's
all
a
that good
reality
stuff.
that the non-police that are listening, they're there's a reality that pressure that they want tickets, it generates money. It is what it is, the business. So you have coppers who want to promote in this weird place, but at the end of the day, it's hard to say it out loud, but it's not worth it.
Kind of, yeah. I look back and I'm like,
But then you couple that with, well, not you couple, you juxtapose that with when you help somebody, you save somebody, and I don't think we sit there and gloat like, yeah, I feel so good, but there, that satisfaction overall is just any human, any job wants to help other people.
right. There's something about helping a legit victim.
Yeah.
There's
sure.
something about that for sure.
So, but just, I think everybody's eyes are opening how much we don't really get. I don't mean to get on negative, but we're talking about quitting, and that's a big
Yeah.
thing because we're so passionate about this job. You have to be.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
You have to have some sort of passion for it.
yeah. When I see like old time coppers and they are supposedly slugs and don't do anything, man, you don't know what they've been through. You don't know, how many complaints they got,
Or what they went through early in their career. Or
Yeah.
At some point.
and now they're just like, I got to survive to go home with my family.
Career
Why
survival.
would I? Yeah, it's so. So yeah, thinking about quitting is interesting. I never thought about quitting, but I've really changed my speed.
Because of everything going on.
Well, even before that, I think just personal stress that I know is from the job.
Oh, yeah.
But I still have that giddiness like a kid when the airship's up and you're,
When you get that,
your baton swinging and
everyone's running out of the station.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
still hot and alive. Like the flame is still hot,
Mm-hmm.
But it's a marathon. So
Yeah.
I know that when I retire, I'm going to miss it.
Don't become that person.
Well, a lot of officers miss it. A lot of officers, when they're retired and older and they talk about it, that's all they talk about, or they kind of, they're so attached. Now they're
Yeah.
not. So that was part of the motivation also for starting the nonprofit. So I would love to scale it and hire retired officers. So
Okay.
they could be attached and they could help and
In a way, yeah.
and get paid rather than, sit on a motorcycle at a movie studio.
Yeah.
It's easy money, but anyway, for people that want it, right? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I think everybody thinks about retirement. I have 16 years right now, and that's all I daydream about.
Retiring.
Yeah, but not because I hate the job. I hate what it's
Or it's
becoming.
not, yeah.
I hate what it's done to me stress-wise, but the job is still fun. And I've never thought about quitting, but when people go through what you went through, that quitting must be 100 times what I think of.
Oh, yeah. It becomes real.
Yeah.
And like I said, at the time, it changed my perspective on life. Because I was like, okay, well, I need to have a family. I need to do this and this. Or I was like, boom, 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 doing stuff that I should have kind of eased up on. But
Yeah, you probably, when you became a P2 off probation, your mentality was that of a 20-year vet already when it comes to certain things.
certain things, yeah. So at the time, my therapist was like, the things you're saying or the things that would trigger me or get under my skin,
Yeah.
like certain radio calls where I'm like, I can't understand why, citizens seem so ungrateful and blah, blah. She's like, the stuff you're telling me now, she's like, I get that from my patients that have like 20 plus years on. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, that to me, it didn't sound good because I'm like,
Yeah,
dude, I'm early in my career. I got like 20 at that time, probably 25 more years to go.
because I don't think it's real, like dying to many cops.
Probably not.
So I feel like that part of your brain just fast forwarded and aged.
It's like a wake up call.
It aged in a fucking heartbeat. But probably will help in your long-term kind of career survival and stress survival when it comes to
Probably.
that part, so.
I know it's helped in the sense with like other P2s when I was still doing patrol.
Yeah.
I would be like, hey man, like slow down. We're going to get there. We're going to be fine. Like we'll get there. Like
Yeah.
just like with certain people I worked with, I could see the difference where I'm like, I should kind of have like their level of like being amped. And I'm kind of here where I'm like, hey man, like liability, like slow down, like we're gonna be fine, we're gonna get to the call. Just
So you were doing that early.
Yeah.
I don't think I was doing that until even after 10 years.
And it's crazy because my partner, when I was on patrol, he had, I think, 10 years or 10, 12 plus.
Yeah.
And I remember there's certain times where I'm like, hey, man, like, slow down. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're going to get to wherever we got to go to. Just slow down.
Yeah, for sure.
So I definitely can see that. I saw the difference for sure. Even with someone that had maybe the same amount of time as I did, where they were amped up, like, let's go. I'm like, wait, we got to think about certain things. And, we got to clear this. Like,
yeah, that'll
take
do
it
it
back.
to you. What you went through will definitely give you that perspective faster than most, for sure. It took me more than 10 years, I think, to where I'm like, no, it's smart to just go slow.
Yeah.
It's smart on every single aspect.
I agree. But, like, as a new P2, you're kind of like, you want to get into everything.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes you got to
ease
it up.
So how do you think, if someone is really, I'm not saying about the details, not asking about details, but if somebody really just, what kind of advice would you give somebody who, like, you run into, who knows Nick Lee and they knew you were the P1 and they're just
curious?
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, I've encountered a lot of different reactions. I think I know how to respond to it. But I think the best way is, treat me like a person. Like, introduce yourself to me. Or say, I've had people that I guess at the time, at the time of the funeral and all that, that I met in years. Even to this day, I think I had someone at Olympic say, hey, do you remember meeting me? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I don't. And I feel crappy because I met so many people, but at that time, like, everything's just a blur.
Yeah.
So, if we've met at that time, don't get offended if I don't remember you.
Well, yeah, you didn't remember me. That was a little different. I think I told you already.
No.
I didn't tell you?
No.
Oh, maybe because I didn't want to, like,
now you got to tell me.
Ask about the scar, like I mentioned earlier. But the day of the accident, they sent us to the hospital. And we already knew. I got the name. And I was texting all my buddies, whatever.
Whose name? Nick's name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got the name already. And so they just said, just stand along here. Just hang out here. We need just more presence. Okay. I saw them before we even met. I saw them roll you through.
Was I awake?
Yeah.
I was. Oh,
man. You were asking about Nick.
Oh, yeah.
And they were telling you, he's fine. He's fine.
And not to, like, talk shit on anyone, I knew something was wrong. Because no one gave me a straight answer. But I understand that they did that, because...
Yeah, I can't be mad at them, right?
No, of course. No. But I definitely knew.
But yeah, they rolled you right in front of me. And you were asking. And they were telling you, he's fine. He's fine.
Yeah.
I remember Fima, I think, was holding your hand. And we all already knew, obviously. I was just like, holy shit. What the fuck? That's all that could go through my brain.
Really?
And there was another P3 there where he was just the way the cop mode is. They know what to do during chaos. They're the most calm during chaos. That's
I think I know who you're talking about, but continue.
Yeah, and he was just like handling business, making a call, do this, do that. All right, get this under control. And I'm just looking around and I'm like, I knew he's from Hollywood. I've seen him before and stuff. So I don't think anybody asked this guy yet if he was all right. So I walked up to him. I was like, "Hey, sir, do you need me to make some phone calls for you? Do you want to have a seat? Are you okay?" And he said, he just stopped, and he said, "Yeah, I was just having breakfast with him right now."
Mm-hmm. I know who you're talking about.
And then he stopped. And then he kind of broke down a little bit. I'm like, fuck, did I cause that? Jesus Christ, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I felt bad. it meant just that, you know. So I think we brought all that up because the second time we met
Was because of Richard?
No.
No. Oh, no.
I think it was at the front desk.
At Olympic?
Yeah.
Probably. I just didn't. So Richard told me, like, oh, you got to meet Chris. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like, I'm brand new to
Okay, that's
Olympic.
probably why, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I went up there to introduce myself and just...
I think you did.
And just kind of... I think I really did it very like, hey, if you need anything, this is what I started, this nonprofit, and take a step back.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me to ask for support from survivors, whether they're partners or the children or widows or whoever it is. So you pretty much offered yourself completely. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. No, yeah, I do.
You're like, just anything. Don't be shy. Go. If I can't, I can't. But just ask. You made me feel very comfortable with that because I just went through asking a widow for her support, and the answer ruined my heart for like for like a week.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So you doing that was a huge help, and it's almost like anything I've asked you and everything I ask you to do for the nonprofit and stuff, I'm only asking like 10% of what I really want to ask you to do.
Really?
Yeah. And you've said no a couple times. You're like, that's not for
yeah.
me. And I'm like, cool. I'm so sorry. So I'm all apologetic. But mostly you're like, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Whatever you need. Yep. Like that. And thank you for that. I think that really helps what we're doing, the cause, and and just, which is, you know, honoring the names, you know, years later. When people tend to kind of, it's not on the forefront in their minds for a, you know, whatever reason, and we'll bring their names back up in a soft, celebratory kind of way. And to be able to do that, I think we've done it successfully. We're really small right now.
Yeah.
Just kind of grassroots. We're trying to grow, but in our little world, our little niche, we've done that pretty successfully. And a huge part of that is not like the volunteers who work real hard or me working on this, but it's been people like you, but a lot of it has been because of you. Because you'll do those cheesy commercials, you know, or you'll do this podcast or whatever it is. So I just want to say thank you.
No, well, thank you for like the way you, since day one, you never like approached me in a way that I felt weird about my situation.
Yeah.
Your approach, I think you should do a podcast on that, on how to approach people, because it made
right
me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Where when you were like, hey, this is what I do. And for me, in a weird way, I felt like, I mean, with my social media or what I have, I'm always going to, like, when that March date comes around, his anniversary, I'm always going to post shit about it.
Right.
And for me, that's just keeping his memory alive. And I felt with what you're doing, it'll make that just bigger or amplify it. Because you can't forget these people.
Yeah.
You know, their families were impacted by this. And for me personally, I'm like, I'm never going to forget this guy.
Yeah.
Ever.
Right.
So, I mean, you just kind of helped me with my little mission.
Good.
So.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
allowing yourself to possibly be very vulnerable to some sensitive topics in your life on this pedestal where people are going to listen. But I think it's going to help people to hear this interview. So I appreciate that.
I hope
You
so.
are for people that don't know Stephanie, she is happy, bubbly, go lucky.
Not always, but okay.
I haven't seen the other side, and you know, that's also how Nick Lee was.
Oh, yeah. Oh, his energy was like 10 times what mine is.
Yeah.
Actually, like 100.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have frustrating calls and he would just be the same bubbly guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you do that?
So yeah, you're maybe a tenth of it, but
Or less.
but it's it's definitely the same kind of energy that I feel, at least.
Yeah.
So anybody who may run into you or hear this podcast, just it's that same energy he gave that you're giving out just naturally.
Oh,
So I'm sure people that knew him appreciate that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because he left a mark on me for sure.
Anything else you want to add?
No, is there anything else?
No, I think
You
we're
sure?
good. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
We could always just have another podcast.
We could. I'd be open to that.
For sure. Cool. Well, thanks for coming over and recording.
Yay. You're welcome.
All right. Off the air.